What traits do you think makes a good leader?
Okay, guys, I know we're losing really bad. And Jimmy, you've played absolutely horrible all game. But if you could just try not to be so bad, we might not get beat by 50, okay? All right, go get them, boys.
Hey, you got food in class? Did you bring enough to share? You know you're not allowed to eat in here. Why don't you go put that in your locker? And is that your phone? You know you can't have that in here. Take that with you too. What's that? Oh, that's mine, sorry. That was my bad. Hello? I can do this! Yeah, I can't do this. Nope. So before we get into it too extra far, just a couple of quick disclaimers. First off, this video has a lot to do with philosophy, which is the study of basic ideas like knowledge, thinking, right and wrong, and the value of stuff. Thanks, Merriam-Webster's dictionary. And also, I may leave some stuff out because these are very big ideas and philosophies that really all deserve their own video, and I'm trying to stuff them into one 10-minute video. China had already begun to destabilize during the Eastern Zhou Dynasty, and even though the dynasty's government was already decentralized thanks to feudalism, power started to bleed away from the Zhou kings. That was a gross metaphor. The Chinese abandoned their traditional values, and war was becoming somewhat of a constant. This turmoil led people to philosophize on not only how to live better lives, but also what made government good. And there are so many new philosophies created during this time or introduced that it's sometimes referred to as 100 schools of thought. One of the most famous philosophies to come from this period was Confucianism, created by Confucius, who lived from 551 BCE to 479 BCE. Some people may confuse Confucianism with a religion, but Confucius spent more time dealing with everyday concerns rather than the spiritual. In fact, Confucius might even argue he didn't create any new ideas at all, and instead was just reteaching traditional Chinese values. Confucius grew up in poverty, but he somehow achieved an education and learned how to read and write. As a teen, he got an administrative job within the government, and it was here where he first became interested in philosophy and began forming his ideas. Confucius thought China was full of rude and dishonest people, and that they all needed to return to traditional Chinese ethics. To fix his lack of morality, he believed that people should know their proper role in society, and this would lead to better families. He also believed people should look to themselves for self-improvement, as he thought this would make them better in their roles. Confucius thought fathers should display high moral values to inspire their family, that children should be respectful and obey their parents, and that families should be loyal to each other. A term you'll often see in textbooks to describe this is called filial piety. Filial piety basically just means to be respectful to your parents and follow those guidelines that Confucius set out. Confucius thought government should behave like a family, and that it would be moral leadership and not laws that would bring stability to China. He thought kings should lead by example and display benevolence and frugality, or be kind and not overspend. And he also thought that the lower classes would then follow the examples set by their superiors. Confucius's teachings were compiled into 5 books, but he didn't actually write any of these. Instead, they're composed from his students' notes. Confucius became one of China's most influential philosophers, and that might even be an understatement. Confucianism eventually made it into every part of Chinese life, even architecture. Homes were built in such a way that assigned different levels of importance to different rooms, and your level of importance in the family determined which rooms you could even go into. Furthermore, even though there is a brief falling out with Confucianism during the 20th century, this philosophy impacted much of Chinese history, and there's even been a resurgence within the last few decades. The Tao, also called the Tao, is said to be undefinable, indescribable, and attempting to do so is a fool's errand. So, I'm gonna give it a shot. The Tao means the way or the path, and it is the guiding force for all of reality. The Tao created the universe and all the things in it, And there's no one set definition of what the Tao is, and instead it's up for each individual Taoist to come up with their own meaning. Probably the most used description for the Tao is that it's like a river, and one should go with the current instead of fighting against it. A major concept in Taoism is action by inaction. And don't confuse this with laziness. It's not an unwillingness to do something. Instead, it's allowing outside influences to work through you to accomplish something without pushing back on them or swimming upstream. Life is spontaneous, and wanting something like, a million subs doesn't just happen immediately. One of the many famous quotes within the Tao Te Ching, which is kind of like the Taoist Bible, is that nature doesn't hurry, but everything is accomplished. The yin-yang is an important symbol in Taoism. The Taoists believe that the universe is a balance of opposites between light and dark, and male and female, high and low, beautiful and hey! Taoists also believe that no side can exist without the other, which is why there's these little circles. Taoism focuses on the natural world, and good virtues or good morals are often compared to nature. Some examples are the strength of mountains, the resilience of trees, and the cheerfulness of flowers. The most famous Taoist teacher is Laozi. In fact, he wrote the Tao Te Ching, though some scholars may think he's mythical, and instead the Tao Te Ching was written by several authors. Laozi is often presented as the Tao personified. He's even sometimes worshipped as a god, although Taoism doesn't typically declare a god or whether one even exists. Laozi believes that people should not try to gain wealth or power. In fact, there's a legend, likely fictional, that Confucius met Laozi and was so impacted by what Laozi had to say, Confucius went home and began focusing on his own inner worth rather than outward displays of wealth. Conveniently for this video's thesis, Taoism also chimed in on what the ideal Chinese government should look like. And as a counterpoint for Confucianism, it believed the government should stay completely out of people's lives. In fact, a ruler that was following the Tao would govern so effortlessly and efficiently, people wouldn't even realize they were being governed. Legalism was developed towards the end of the Warring States period, and unlike the two previous philosophies that I've discussed, it is entirely political. Legalism disagreed with the morality of Confucius, and its strict authority ran against Taoism. I would like to reiterate that even though the implementation of legalism under the Qin dynasty led to a loss of life, freedom, and culture, it was a product of its time, which was the Warring States period, which probably wasn't great. Hence the Warring States period. Legalism was created by Shang Yang, and then later expanded on and spread by Han Fiezi. Legalism holds that people are awful and need to be controlled. Authorities should create laws, and then people should follow those laws without question. Punishments were also harsh, and legalists believe that citizens should be responsible for each other's actions. So if you were to rob a bank, not only would you get in trouble, but also your parents, because they should have taught you better. And maybe even your neighbors, because why didn't they prevent you from robbing a bank? Legalists wanted appointed officials in government who had earned their positions, rather than just nobles who were born into power. They also wanted to continue expanding the empire and believed China should always have the army ready for war. The qualities of a good leader have been debated for a long time and will continue to be debated on in the future. Because of the long, slow decline and eventual collapse of the Zhou Dynasty, many great thinkers spent time trying to think of ways to avoid situations like what they found themselves in. These great thinkers all came up with their own solutions, whether it was Confucius's return to morals, Laozi's go-with-the-flow, effortless leadership, or Han Fiezi's heavy-handed authoritarianism. They're all just trying to solve one problem. How can we improve people's lives by creating stability? So in one way or another, they're all successful. Confucianism was a preferred philosophy for much of Chinese history. Daoism continues to gain popularity and has well over 20 million followers worldwide. And let's just say totalitarian leadership has never gone out of style. Anyways, I hope you're having a great day. And until next time, I will miss you all terribly.